I rise today again to respond to some of the concerns that have been expressed on this floor regarding the Keystone XL Pipeline and to urge my colleagues to move this important shovel-ready project forward. I had a chance earlier this afternoon, I guess it was this morning, to listen to a fair amount of the debate as I presided. And a lot of what we're hearing over and over again is the same messages. And in some ways, confused messages. Because I don't know if we're talking about stopping the oil sands in Canada or if we're talking about approving a pipeline. I don't know if we're talking about doing the state's work and siting a pipeline within their state, or if we're talking about making a determination as directed by legislation from this body to the president to make a determination on whether approval, which is to take that pipeline across the border of this country, is in the national interest. I think we've confused a lot of the dialogue here, and I just want to take a moment to start from ground zero, and that is that we have a requirement that when a pipeline, legislative requirement, that when a pipeline is going to come across a border, the State Department has an obligation to determine whether that is going to be permitted, and the determination is whether it's in the national interest. I don't think anyone anticipated that a pipeline would take 6 years. 6 years of dialogue, 6 years of study, millions and millions of dollars, and actually billions of dollars of stranded investment waiting for approval of this pipeline. And so anyone who says, let's wait for the process to work, is not facing the reality that the process is broken. This process has not worked. This process has not brought this project to some kind of finality. Yes or no? Yes or no? And people who say, well, we need to wait for the Nebraska Supreme Court. Nothing's going to go through Nebraska until the people of Nebraska, through their representatives, actually approve a route. So that's an issue, in my opinion, that belongs to the people of Nebraska and to their elected representatives and to their people. When they say, look, the EIS may have said that, but it's not reality. When the EIS, commissioned by the State Department, says that there will not be a carbon impact as a result of this pipeline, but we aren't going to even talk about that because we don't agree with that fact. We don't agree with that fact in the EIS, that this isn't about stopping the oil sands in Canada, the oil sand development. This is about a pipeline, and whether it's in the national interest to bring that pipe south. Now, I want to tell you why I think it's in the national interest. I think it's in the national interest because when I talk about energy independence for our country, when I talk about energy independence for our country and looking at how we can deploy our resources for the good of the world, I talk about North American energy independence, whether it's collaborating with our great friends to the North, Canada, or whether it is in fact building relationships and building infrastructure with our neighbors to the South, Mexico, that has Mexico holding a huge amount of oil and gas reserves. I also find it kind of curious because there's been a lot of discussion about gasoline prices and how kind of like, well, see, we don't need Keystone XL development or production because look at what's happening with gas prices, and they're going down. This is classic supply-demand economics. You know why gasoline prices are going down? Because we are producing more oil in North America. Because we are adding to the supply. The supply obviously is meeting world demand, meeting the conditions. We have a little discussion in OPEC. I will acknowledge that. But fundamentally, it's economics at work. When you have a greater supply and you have reduced demand, the price goes down. And that's why we're seeing lower gasoline prices. And so when so many people say we won't benefit from the Keystone XL pipeline, and they talk about employment to that pipeline, and they talk about what it means to have this system be deployed, I will tell you that we can thank what's happening in Canada in energy production for gasoline prices that now are, for the first time in a long time, below $3 in many parts of our country. Below $3. Because we are producing more domestic and North American crude oil. And so I think we need to be honest about what we're talking about here. And I frequently say that the pipeline has taken a role in American politics that is way disproportional to what it is. It is a pipeline. There is over 2 million miles of pipelines in America today. This is going to be just another one of those, and it's going to be state of the art. Can I predict a perfect world? Can I predict that there will never be any kind of consequence? No, I can't. I can't any more than I can predict what's going to happen tomorrow with any kind of natural resource or any kind of transportation infrastructure. But I can tell you that I have seen the extra precautions, and I just want to report some of those things that TransCanada has done. The pipeline company would build Keystone XL to respond to the concerns. They've agreed to 57 special safety conditions that go above and beyond what's required in federal regulation, including the installation of automatic shutoff valves, not only every 20 miles, but in specific spots that cross waterways. There is over 2.3 million miles of pipe in the ground, and around 160,000 of those miles are being used for crude oil transport. You think about that, and you think about the need for this infrastructure. And a lot of the discussion today about how this oil will fly out of the country magically. And I will tell you the reason why, contrary to what you've been told today, that this pipeline is destined for south into the United States. You've been hearing that the pipeline didn't go east and west because Canada didn't want it. That pipeline went to the south because that's where heavy crudes are refined. And a lot of the heavy crudes that are refined in Texas and in the southern Gulf states is crude that is imported from Venezuela. It's imported from Venezuela. Who would you rather buy your crude oil from? Venezuela, or would you rather buy it from our friends to the north, Canada? And so we have so politicized, for lack of a better word, something that should be a clear economic decision. And we have made this an important cause in both sides. And I will call out both sides. This is a pipeline. It is a pipeline that will transport an important commodity that will be used in our refineries in our country to produce gasoline and diesel fuel that drives the engine of our economy, certainly our transportation economy. We are buying it from our friends to the north, Canada. Canada officials have years of responsible investment, responsible development of their infrastructure, and they are people that we should want to do business with. And instead of simply making the decision based on, yes, environmental considerations, which we can't ignore, that an EIS says there are not any environmental impediments to this pipeline. And people say, well, what if it changes in Nebraska? Do you honestly believe that if there is a change in Nebraska, there is going to be a change that will put more of the Nebraska environment in harm's way? Do you honestly believe that's the outcome of the Nebraska Supreme Court decision? No. And so when we look at this, we need to begin to focus on what this is. And it is a pipeline. It is a critical piece of energy infrastructure. And it is something that has languished too long because of a failed process. 6 years. 6 years. There's young people here at the pages. What if I told you that you couldn't get your driver's license for 6 years? What if I told a business, we're not going to permit you for 6 years? What if we told anyone down the road who needed some kind of license or approval from the federal government, 6 years, that's what it's going to take, 6 years. There is no one who thinks that's appropriate. And so if this process today that started by my great friend, Mary Landrieu from Louisiana, spurs a further discussion that resolves this issue one way or the other, we've accomplished a great deal today. We have accomplished a great deal by having this important discussion, which obviously heartfelt opinions on both sides. In fact, my colleague from California has described it as a vote of conscience. And I will tell you, from my perspective, it is a vote for common sense. It is a vote for common sense in moving this piece of infrastructure forward and making sure that we are doing everything that we can to provide affordable energy that drives this economy. And that is the new dynamic, the new energy renaissance. And I believe that we will approve this pipeline. I'm hoping it's today, but we will approve this pipeline. And at the end of the day, all we've done is result in incredible frustration and incredible delay that has cost money for not only the pipeline, but for the taxpayers of this country. It is time to approve the Keystone XL Pipeline. And I yield the floor.